to be a follower of God and a follower of your own worldly desires. Jesus in the Bible is quoted by saying, why do you transgress God's laws for the sake of your own tradition? Now, when we understand that, what does he mean? He doesn't mean simply to follow anything that you want to do. He's saying, obey God's commandments, regardless what you are. He doesn't say, oh, you Jews or Israelites. He doesn't say, oh, my. He does not differentiate between anybody. He gives it straight. Don't transgress God's laws for your sake of your own tradition. Don't do that. What are some of the traditions that we fall into that puts our philosophy and our ideologies above God's will? And that's what this show is basically for. Understanding how we have changed, put our laws above God's laws, and how we are currently in our current situation.
Along the way, now growing up, how did you figure all this out now? How did this stem up?
Well, I began reading the Bible, and I read the Torah, and I read a few different versions of the Bible, and I had a few. Like I said, my father grew up in the 60s. We can't understand what it is, like a cause and effect type of situation. I cannot give you my story until you understand how I was raised. My father grew up in the 60s in the south side of Chicago, where the blacks and white movement was kind of, racial segregation. There was a lot of violence, a lot of fights. My father actually had fought physically with Martin Luther King Jr. And so he formed his own little white posse gang to chase the black fellows out of Garfield Park on 55th Street there. So the way he was raised is simply segregation. And when we look into the Catholic Church, all we see is total segregation, total domination of what? White race. Everything about the Catholic Church is white race. The image of Jesus is the white race. The image of God is the white race. Every single pope is the white race. Everything from Saint Peter, the first pope, all the way up into our current pope, Benedict, all white race. So this is what I have in my mind. White race, superior. Everyone else is secondary. This is what I had in my mind. Now when I start reading the Bible, I started to say, wait a second. Solomon was black. How can Solomon be a prophet if he was black? God must love black people. A few of the things. Jesus was Jewish. Well, I think in my mind, well, the Jewish people killed my God. How? And then I was confused between racism, religion, tradition, culture. My brain was going like a scrambled egg. I did not understand where to focus.
Did you think Jesus was white also? Blue eyes?
Absolutely.
Blonde hair?
Jesus was my God. He was my dude. He was just like my sisters.
But when you read the Bible, actually he's more on the darker side, darker complexion.
Right. On the book of Revelation, chapter 1, verse 14 and 15, where Paul has a vision of Jesus as Jesus ascends into heaven. He falls on his hands and knees, and he looks upon the sky, and he sees a figure with curly hair, tight like wool. His feet are the color of bronze, and his skin is the shade of darkened amber. Well, that doesn't appear to be this blonde hair, blue-eyed God that I've been worshiping all along. Who is this person? There are also other forms of the lineage. If we'll find in the book of Matthew the lineage between Jesus and his direct link or lineage to Solomon, who Solomon was black.
How do you know Solomon was black?
Because in the book of Isaiah, Solomon says, "Do not judge my skin by the color of the sun shining upon me, for my skin is already black." So he is declaring that I am black by skin. Don't judge me.
Yeah.
So we have this foundation, and this is where a lot of Southern Baptists find the idea that Jesus is black, and a lot of people from the Nation of Islam, the Louis Farrakhan movement, they actually believe that Jesus was black. Some of them believe that he was white. But this is, again, we have to get back to the beginning here. What is the focus of this episode? This episode is a misunderstanding God's laws and putting our ideologies above his will. How are we doing that? We are focusing so much on racism and segregation and nationalism that we forget to understand the jewel, the golden jewel that's in the package. Jesus was the most precious package of all. He was a very precious package, but what do? We just look at the outside wrapping, the bow and the ribbon. We never open up and see the preciousness inside there.
Yeah.
Stop looking at the outside image and let's look inside. Let's explore it. Jesus says in the Bible, he says, to prove all things, know all things. Prove it and you will know. He also says, truth will set you free. How is it true? How will truth ever set you free if you are so wrapped in your own culture?
So
blinded.
You're searching for truth now. You're really
That's it.
starting to investigate.
Right.
Did you feel you had a connection with the Creator? Were you calling upon Him to guide you? Or?
At this point, no. At this point, I began to almost feel that I was an atheist. To say, well, all of what I was taught all along by the church is such a dominant business. Actually, it's like an organization in the world. If they're wrong, and there are more Christians in the entire world, then who am I to separate myself from that? Christians, I know some very good Christian people, some great Christian people. And at the same time, I knew some very dishonest and some devious Muslims, very devious. Many of my Christian friends were better moral ethics than some of the Muslim people that I knew.
Now you're really confused.
No, I'm very confused. What's going on? So I start to think, well, Muslims, one of my very good friends in high school, I went to give her a Christmas gift. And she says, I don't celebrate Christmas. I said, what are you, crazy? Christmas is a great holiday. It's all about joy and holly and cheer. How dare you? She says, no, I don't accept Jesus. Well, excuse me. Jesus is one of the perfect creations ever on earth. How dare you? And then I had another Muslim friend who gave me a Christmas gift. I said, oh, geez, one doesn't accept, another one does. Well, I don't.
It's a lot of confusion. So in the midst of all the confusion,
right?
How do you come to know the truth?
Well, we get back to the women. These women were just in my mind. The not sexually, attractive-wise. When you are window shopping, and you will go past the same window every single day for a month and see this item in the window and say, you know what, I know I can't buy that, I don't have the money for it, but I really like it.
Yeah.
And that's exactly, every time I would see, and it still happens to me today, every time that I see Muslims, particularly the Muslim women, wearing the headscarf, I am amazed by that. It still touches a nice, precious part in my heart. And that's where it started. I was engaged in high school, and my fiance at the time had given me a Quran as a gift for a birthday present. And I hated the Muslims. I hated them, furious. The only thing that was keeping me alive.
You hated Muslims.
I hated them.
So that means you hated Islam also.
Absolutely. It was my enemy. I thought Muslims were Mohammedans. You worshipped Muhammad, this Middle Eastern enemy terroristic movement.
Yeah.
You know, you Muslims, where I would call them, you Muslims, you follow bin Laden into the desert. You Yasser Arafat is your leader. Saddam Hussein is, your commander-in-chief. This is what my perception was. But you know what?
And that's probably the majority of people who are ignorant about Islam.
Right.
Yeah.
But you know what? I had to give the benefit of the doubt where it was due. Because Yasser Arafat, he built an airport. I said, well, give him the benefit of the doubt. He built an airport. Saddam Hussein, he gave his people electricity, where now they basically have nothing. So I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Well, what else? What I would do is I would